Ranger Blast Pack Super Science. I'm Commander Jennifer, and today we're going to be talking about some super experiments that you're going to be doing in your Summer Blast Pack. So, before we do these experiments, why do you think science is so important? Well, science is everywhere, right? When you're looking at the weather, when you're looking at the stars, even when you go in the kitchen to cook your food. Science is everywhere. It has to do with everything that we do. And science helps us learn about our Earth, learn about ourselves, learn about the environment and other people, and help make those things even better. So, any good scientist makes sure that they follow something called the scientific method. You've probably heard of the scientific method in your science class. Well, the scientific method has several steps. The first step in the scientific method is, well, why are you even doing an experiment? You've got to ask a question. Define a problem. What is your experiment about? What are you trying to find out? Then, once you have defined your problem or asked your question, you need to do your background research. So you need to research what you're trying to find out just as much as you can. Once you've done your background research, then you're going to form a hypothesis. A hypothesis, some people call an educated guess. You're not really guessing. You're trying to take all the background knowledge that you have about what you're trying to find out, and you're trying to figure out what you think will happen during the experiment. Once you make your hypothesis, then the next step is to test that hypothesis with an experiment. Any good scientist makes sure that they document and follow their experiment to a T, so that if they get good results, they can replicate those same results each and every time. So you need to make sure as a scientist that you are documenting all of your results and all of your information during the experiment. Well, after you finish your experiment, then you need to analyze your data. So you need to look at that data, check out what happened, and then compare it to your hypothesis. Was your hypothesis right, or was it wrong? And guess what? For every one right hypothesis, there are thousands that are wrong. So if your hypothesis isn't right, that's okay. That's why scientists retest. So after you either accept your results or reject them, you might need to retest and see if you can repeat the experiment based on what you learned the first time and see if you get better results. So, what experiments are you going to be doing as part of your Science Blast Pack? Well, you've got 4 different experiments that you're going to be doing in your Blast Pack. And just like we talked about, any good scientist needs to make sure that they follow their experiment to a T. So you're going to have a set of papers inside your Blast Pack that gives you directions for each of your experiments. So it's going to give you step-by-step instructions. And then you have something called a data log. Your data log is where you are recording your results, what's happening to during your experiment. So make sure you record your results on your data log each time you do an experiment. Well, the first 2 experiments that you're going to be doing in your Science Blast Pack have something to do with something called a super absorbent polymer, or superpolymers. Well, a polymer is a chain of like molecules. A super absorbent polymer means that it absorbs liquids. A super absorbent polymer can absorb up to 300 times its own mass. That's a lot. So what happens with the superpolymer is it either goes through a process of diffusion or osmosis. So diffusion means when the movement of particles from one area that has a higher concentration, that means there's a lot more of the particles in one area, move to an area of lower concentration. Now this can happen through a process called osmosis. So osmosis is the diffusion of water through something called a semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable membrane means that water can pass through it fairly easy. It goes right through it. So the first of the two experiments that you're going to be doing is going to be with jelly marbles. Have you ever seen these before? So they're pretty small right now, and they really don't look like jelly. And I don't even know that they're big enough that I would call them marbles right now. But what you're going to do is you're going to be adding water to these. And hopefully through the process of osmosis, the water will go through the membrane into that marble. And what do you think will happen? Well, that's for you to find out through your experiment. So what do you think will happen with these jelly marbles when you add water to them? The next activity that you're going to be doing with that super polymer, well, it's going to have to do with the diaper. What do you think a diaper has to do with a super absorbent polymer? If you have a diaper, do you want it to be super absorbent? Definitely. So inside these diapers, you have some polymers. They're kind of crystal-like. So you're going to be getting those out of this diaper and seeing what happens if you add water to them. And then you're going to be testing out what's called water gel. Doesn't really look like gel right now. It looks like a powder. But what do you think will happen to it when you add water to it? Well, one thing about diapers that we like to do this experiment, did you know that sometimes astronauts have to wear a diaper? They don't actually call it a diaper. It's a little more sophisticated. It's called a maximum absorbency garment. Why do you think they would be wearing those? Well, when astronauts are lifting off, they're in their seats for a very long time. They can't just get out and go to the restroom when they need to. So they wear that maximum absorbency garment, just kind of added protection for them, just in case. I would imagine most of the astronauts probably don't use them, but just in case they have to, because they're sitting in those seats for hours. The same thing happens when they're landing. And the other time that they might wear one is when they're doing an EVA. An EVA is an extravehicular activity. That means they're going outside of the spacecraft or outside of the ISS to do work. Well, if you know anything about that, it is a very long process. It takes them a while to even get that suit on correctly and make sure everything is sealed. Then they're outside of the spacecraft or the ISS for several hours doing their work. And then it takes a while to get that all back off. So they don't want to have to go back in the spacecraft and go through that whole process again if they need to go to the restroom. So they wear that garment just in case. So you're going to be doing some activities with jelly marbles and with your water gel to test out those super polymers. The next activity you're going to do is going to deal with growing seeds. Have you ever grown a seed before? They're pretty cool. So the first thing you're going to be doing with your seed, which these are lima bean seeds, by the way, you're going to dissect it. Dissect it means you're going to see what's inside of it. See what's going on inside of this lima bean seed. That helps it grow. Then you're going to test out which way it grows the best. So you're going to have a bag of potting soil that you'll put inside this little pot. And then you're going to have a paper towel and a baggie and water. And you're going to see if your lima bean seed grows better in the soil or if it grows better in the water and paper towel. So you're going to test that out. See which way is more effective. And astronauts like to do these types of experiments because when they go on long-term flights like to Mars, they're going to need to grow some of their own food. So they need to find the ways that are the best ways, the most effective ways, in order for them to grow that food and grow those plants. So you're going to be doing an experiment with seeds. Now the fourth experiment you're going to do deals with something called UV beads. Have you ever seen these before? they just look white. What do you think will happen when you take them out in the sun? Well, these UV beads, or ultraviolet beads, have a special chemical in them. When you take them out into the sun, they react with the UV rays coming from the sun, and it will make them change colors. So right now they're just white because I don't have any ultraviolet rays or lights in this room. But when they go out in the sun, they'll change colors. Well, what's an ultraviolet ray? Well, ultraviolet rays are part of the electromagnetic spectrum of energy coming to us from the sun. UV rays aren't really helpful for our skin. That's what causes you to have a sunburn, and those sunburns can sometimes lead to cancer. Those UV rays can damage our eyes and damage our cells. So we want to protect ourselves as much as we can from those UV rays. Well, one form of protection we have is our ozone layer and our atmosphere. It blocks a lot of those UV rays from getting down to us. Well, what's another type of protection that you could use? You probably put it on every time you go out into the sun, or I bet your moms or dads want you to. Sunblock or sunscreen. Those help block those UV rays. And sunscreens or sunblocks have different UV ratings. That means they're supposed to protect you from a certain percentage of those UV rays. So what you're going to do is you are going to test out 2 different SPFs, or sun protection values or factors, with these UV beads to see which of those sunscreens works best at protecting us from those ultraviolet rays. All right, so you've got 4 experiments. Make sure that scientists that you fill out your data logs, follow those instructions to a T, and we will meet together on our Zoom call and go over your results. I'm so excited to see what happens with your experiments. So until then, I'm Commander Jennifer, over and out.